Hello there, welcome to another writing vlog. Today I have something very exciting planned, and by planned I mean I decided this about 10 minutes ago, but I have been on a bit of a writing break since midway through NaNoWriMo when I crashed and burned and gave up and decided to take the rest of the year off. It is still 2023, it is the 27th of December right now, and I'm feeling ready to get back into writing now. I think I've taken more than enough time off now, and I'm very excited to jump back into getting some work on my books done. Specifically, I think I would like to go back to book 1 of the Project Side series. Since we've been away from that project for so long, I think it'd be good to give you a bit of a catch up on how we're doing, where we're standing, what has happened in the last couple of years. September 2022, I finished off draft 4 of Project Side book 1 and I got it sent out to beta readers. And at this point I took a bit of a break to work on some Project Side related non-writing project while I waited for beta reader feedback. And this was really fun, but it only kept me busy for about 2 months, at which point I got a bit impatient and I started working on the second book in the series. And I am not the type of person that can handle working on multiple things at the same time. So as soon as I started that second book, I knew I am not touching book 1 again until this draft is done, which isn't ideal when you are a really slow writer. So that book was in progress from December 2022 all the way up until September 2023, at which point I took another break from that project to work on something else. And I haven't touched book 2 since September this year, but book 1 since September last year. Which is fun that I finished both of them in September. I had not actually noticed that before I sat down to film this. It's almost like having the impending NaNoWriMo and Preptober deadline kicks my ass into gear to finish my existing project. Anyway, I have decided that we're finally going to sit down and go through some of this beta feedback that I got forever ago. However, I have not even looked at the first book in the series for well over a year. But yes, in this video, for however long that may go on for, my main goals are to go through and do a whole read through of the book without looking at any beta feedback and just make up my own mind about things and try and figure out what changes I want to do to it. Then go through the beta feedback and figure out what lines up with my own comments and which ones I think I might want a second opinion on, which ones I want to implement right now, and make a plan of what we actually want to do for draft 5. We've got quite a lot to do, but before we do anything else, I'm just gonna get a refill and we're gonna sit down and read the book. I haven't even made it to the end of chapter 1 yet, but I'm getting really excited about all the revisions I want to make because this chapter is the one where my main character is mining, and since writing this I have actually been able to hold a pickaxe and play around with a pickaxe, so I can actually tell now, like there's some description that's like, oh, that's like slightly inaccurate, so like I know how to fix it and it's really cool that I know this now. I've also noticed that while I'm not actually editing anything, I'm just leaving myself comments, I am effectively line editing by telling myself what line edits I want to make in the comments, and that is not what I'm supposed to be doing right now. I am supposed to be fixating on big picture changes and not line edits at this point. Yes, I am 4 drafts in, but I remember from just seeing the email notifications about beta comments that I was looking at as they came in that there were a couple of bigger picture items that I need to tweak, and I would like to do those before I move on to line editing. But because my writing has evolved since last time I looked at this, it is like there's some bits that are just springing out to me that I just need to write down that I want to fix that, even though I'm sure I would catch those during an actual line edit the next time around as well. I will need to leave myself a reminder, but I'm doing it anyway. At this rate, it is going to take forever to get through this reread, so I really need to just hunker down and stop focusing on sentences and just move on. I have been working on this for about an hour and I've only actually managed to get through 2 chapters, which is an incredibly slow pace. I was kinda hoping to get through the entirety of the first part this evening. I think that's fine though. I am actually really enjoying rereading this. There are obviously bits that need more work, but it's not as bad as I feared that I might think that it is. That sentence does not make any sense whatsoever, but you know what I mean. I think I'm gonna grab some dinner and then possibly read a little bit more before bed, and I will keep you updated on how everything goes. I'm currently halfway through the second part of the book, which is really exciting. I think from what I remember from the feedback I got was that the second part was everyone's least favorite, and I kind of really like it. But also I can see why. There's at least one character that's really inconsistent during part 2 that needs a lot of work. And I can also see bits where people told me stuff was confusing and I was like, what do you mean? This is not confusing at all. And now I'm rereading it's like, oh, I kind of forgot to explain that thing and also that other thing. So like, yeah, fair enough, that is confusing. So I think the fact that I've taken basically a year and a quarter out from looking at this book has been really helpful because I can look at it with fresh eyes. And it's also really fun because there's bits that I've forgotten about that I'm just like, I'm enjoying reading it as though this was someone else's book. It's kind of really cool. Hello there, long time no see. I have been very slowly reading my books throughout the last week or so. I can't actually remember when my last update was. It is currently the 3rd of January. And I've been just really enjoying reading like a couple of chapters here and there and reading it slowly. I don't think I've ever actually read it slowly before. I always just sort of go through it really fast. I am very nearly done with the reread. I am halfway through part 8 out of 9, so I think I've got maybe 10-11 chapters left to read. And today I am going on a little museum and bubble tea date with my sibling, and I am going to be taking my laptop along because hopefully I will be getting some outdoor writing time, which I can't believe I haven't done that in the time that I've been here on holiday so far, because writing outdoors is one of my favorite things to do, and I finally get to do it today, or at least rereading outside, which is, you know, same thing.
Wish that I could stay in this moment forever, so I can hold you in my arms. I will carry you on my shoulders as long as I'm able. Scare the monsters under your bed, deep and abiding. Liking for you is all I need. Until my heart gives in, I will do everything I can for you.
I finished my reread during my flight back home after Christmas, and now that I finished the book, I just wanted to take a minute to tell you some of my thoughts on it, as well as my thoughts on the reading process itself. I didn't do this intentionally, but due to everything else I had going on over Christmas, I ended up reading this book extremely slowly. Every time that I've read this book so far, I have either done it over the course of a single weekend or a single week when I was being a bit more slow on myself. And when I'm reading a book for fun, I am not a fast reader whatsoever. It is very rare for me to read more than 1 chapter in a day, and even more rare for me to read every day of the week. So the fact that I was reading this book very, very slowly, paired with the fact that it had been almost a year and a half since last time I read it, just made it feel like I was actually reading it as the reader and not as the writer trying to review her own work. And I am honestly surprised by how much I enjoyed this. It was so much fun. This is the most fun I've had reading my own work in a very long time, because it didn't feel like I was reading my own work. The fact that I was also critiquing it as I went made it feel very much like I was beta reading for a friend, and that sort of mindset allowed me to see the positives a lot more than I normally would. So I was still picking up on issues and leaving myself constructive, useful criticism that I would leave a friend, But at the same time, when I found something that I really liked, I would also leave a comment on that, because that's what I would do if I was reviewing my friend's work. And it's also good for my own work as a reminder that some of these scenes actually work. Because when I've worked on this book in the past, there's been cases where I'm rereading this, even though I have basically memorized it, so there's no reason for me to be reading it. And some scenes come across differently when I have the entire book basically line by line in my head versus when I do not. So being able to pick up on things where it's like, okay, this scene that I wasn't sure on when I had read it a million times actually works really well when I'm reading it once after a really long time. Felt like really useful feedback, but that's not the sort of feedback I normally leave myself, because I normally only focus on the negatives. And of course the opposite scenario was also true, so there were cases where things that I thought were fine when I've read the book very, very quickly before, actually reading it as a more casual, slower reader made me realize that things were not well explained enough, or that there was too much of a gap between something being explained and the next time it's used, so that maybe people could do with a reminder, because I was confusing myself and I'm supposed to have written this thing. So in general, even though both reading the book so slowly and leaving so much time between drafts were accidental and definitely not what I had in mind, I'm glad that those things happened, because I think I've gotten some very useful insights out of this reread. In terms of my thoughts on the actual book itself, this is going to sound like a strange sentence, but it is simultaneously better than I expected and worse than I expected. There were a number of chapters that I'm genuinely just so proud of and that I think they barely need any work at all, and the number of chapters where I feel that way about them is actually surprisingly high. However, there were also a couple of chapters towards the end of the book where I knew going into this reread that I had rushed those chapters, and that I tend to do this towards the end of the books because I just want to be done with it. It takes me so long to write something that towards the end I start getting more and more impatient with it, and you can tell. And they are so much worse than I remember. They're gonna need so much work to get them to the same level that some of the rest of the book. And the worst thing is, I don't even know how to fix them, at least not off the top of my head. I am going to have to sit down and really brainstorm these and figure out how to make them not suck, but also I can't take them out altogether because it will screw up things on the second book at this point. So like, I just need to figure out how to make this chapter interesting but still have the same end result. And there's, I think, 3 or 4 chapters that have that problem, which is a lot to deal with, but that's okay, that's what revisions are for. On top of these problem chapters, I felt like my world building was a little bit weak at times. Like, there's some parts of the world that are very well put together and that you can tell how much research I've put into them. And then there's other parts of the world where it's just like, what was I even doing? Like, it's so inconsistent. I seem to have no grasp on how much technology there actually is in this world. And I'm just gonna have to sit down and make some decisions and then fix all of the consistency issues, because damn, this thing is a mess. In general though, I am genuinely so proud of this book, of this draft of this book, and it's definitely getting there. Like, compared to draft 1, this thing is so much better, and it just makes me feel more confident. Like, the good parts of the book make me feel more confident that I can tackle the bad parts of the book, and that I do have the skills to make these chapters just as good as all the other ones. I just need to put my mind to it and actually fix some of these problems, but I think I can do it. I think I can make this book even better than it already is. Which brings us to the next step of the process, which is going through beta reading feedback. Now, what I failed to mention at the start of this clip is that it's actually the 27th of January right now. So my last update was on the 3rd of January, and I finished reading the book a couple of days later on the 6th of January. So what happened to the last 3 weeks, you might wonder? Well, I kind of got COVID, like pretty much immediately upon landing in England, which has not been great. I had to take almost a full week off work, and then I was working from home for a little bit, and then I had to go back into the office, even though even now I still don't actually feel that great. Like, I feel like the recovery process has been very slow, which is why even when I was back at work, I wasn't working on any writing related things in the evening, because I was just coming home, going to bed, just trying to keep up with sleep and recovery and getting myself to feel better. And we're still taking it slow. It is Saturday today, and I've only sat down to film this at 3 p.m. because I spent until 11 a.m. in bed this morning, and then I just played Stardew Valley until now, which I'm okay with because I think I needed to take some time to rest after a very tough week at work. But I would like to do a little bit of book work this weekend, even if it's just like a little bit to get back into it slowly. I don't have to do a massive amount right now because you can probably tell just from sitting here and talking to you for the last 10 minutes, my voice is already sort of dying. And of course, the other thing is the whole point of rereading the book was to have it fresh in my mind when I go back to read the reading feedback, and it's now been 3 weeks since I read the book. Fortunately, I left myself quite a lot of notes, so everything that I've been talking about was scripted, and it was scripted 3 weeks ago because I did not remember any of this when I sat down to film. So I'm glad I took notes. But I think before I actually go through and start on beta reading feedback, it might be worth for me to go back to my own reread notes and try and organize them into my revision system planner, because I've already forgotten what my feedback was, and it'd be useful to have that fresh in my head when I go through what my beta reader said. So that's what we're gonna be working on today. Before my voice gets any worse, let's get started. Good morning, happy Sunday. Yesterday I actually managed to go through the entire book worth of comments in less than 2 hours, which is insane because I actually spent most of the morning and afternoon procrastinating getting started, and then when I did, I just finished it like so quickly, and it was so damn easy. To make things easier for myself, when I was going through comments and putting them into my revision planner, which by the way is the same revision planner that I used for my last round of revisions, which I explained in the video that I will be linking up here. But I will give you another look so you know what I'm talking about when I get to beta reading stuff. But I decided I was only going to include big things into that, so things that are just like a quick line edit or fixing a paragraph, I did not include. And what I'm going to do instead is, once I've done all of the big issues on my revision planner, I'm going to go through my reread document another time and implement those line edits at the end. So with that in mind, the number of comments that I left myself during reread that were big enough to make it into this revision planner was 17, which is pretty good considering the number that was on there from my last round of revisions with things that were just left over after I got tired with revisions and just decided was good enough for now, is 80. Actually, that's not right, it's 80 total, so that's 63 from last round. So I think once I'm done going through beta reading comments, I will go back to those 63 issues that I have on my list from last reread and decide which ones of those I actually want to implement, because some of them I wasn't sure on and I left them so that after beta readers I could decide if this was actually a problem or not. So I'm hoping some of them won't be relevant anymore, other ones are relevant, and there's things I don't actually know how to fix, which is why they're still there. A lot of the difficult ones are things like naming things, which I'm really not looking forward to, but I don't have to revise anything right now, I just have to plan my revisions. For now, I have 3 beta readers that actually read the entire book that have left me comments, and I kind of want to say that I want to go through all of them today. That might be a bit unrealistic, but just judging from how easy it was to go through things yesterday, I could maybe do it. We're gonna give it a try anyway. Let's see how it goes. Hello, it is in fact not Sunday anymore, it is the 3rd of February, I think. Probably, you'll find out. I was definitely far too ambitious in thinking I could go through everyone's feedback in a single day. I made it halfway through Marta's feedback, and that was that. And I then thought I could go through the rest of Marta's feedback over the week, and I have not touched it at all. It is now Saturday, it is a week later, and we are going to try again this weekend. I think part of what's been happening lately is I am in fact still recovering from COVID, even though I keep telling myself that I'm fine. I am not fine. I have all of the symptoms of long COVID, and apparently these symptoms only count as long COVID if you've had them for over 12 weeks. Which sort of implies that having them for 12 weeks at least is the norm. Like, that's just normal and it doesn't even qualify as long COVID. So I've been struggling. I've been avoiding working on my book before work in the morning because I've been at the point where I don't have enough energy that I can make it through the entire workday without feeling absolutely miserable. So I try to avoid working in the morning so that I have enough energy to make it through the workday. And then I get home and I just want to go to bed. So I'm hoping this is something that's gonna get better, but in the meantime, I am trying to be gentle on myself, something that I am very notoriously bad at, but that's okay. And of course, on top of battling with all of this stuff, I have also been continuing to house hunt, which I have mentioned in a couple of videos at this point, and we have actually kind of chosen something. I will talk about this in more detail in a different video, because this video is getting way too long as it is, but I'm gonna have to be dealing with that in parallel now, so I don't know how well this beta reading stuff and the upcoming revisions are gonna go, but they're not the priority right now, so I'm just gonna take my time with them and do however much I can, and it doesn't matter how long it takes, it's fine. But on that note, we do want to take all of tomorrow, so all of Sunday, to do some packing and preparing for stuff, and we've decided to take today off because it's been such a stressful week, and by off I mean I can work on whatever project I want to, which is going to be going through the rest of Marta's beta feedback. I am just over halfway there, and I know that there were less comments in the second half, or at least less critiquey comments in the second half than the first half, so hopefully it will not take that long. It is midday already because I had to run some errands in town, and to bribe myself to actually sit down and work on this, I picked up some bubble tea on the way home. So I'll be drinking this and going through the feedback, and that's probably the only productive thing I'm gonna do today because your girl needs to rest. I'm just getting to the last 3 or 4 chapters of Marta's comments, and there have been some very good, interesting bits of feedback that I hadn't considered before that I've been adding. I think I remembered there not being as much in the second half of the book, and I think the reason I thought that is because all of the comments are smaller scale, so there's a bunch of big issues in the first half that I think they're gonna take more thought to fix because it spans multiple chapters and I have to figure out where I can maybe insert a chapter or get rid of something or like make some major changes to it. Whereas the second half, it has just as many comments, but there are more things that affect maybe a scene or a paragraph or like fixing a transition and things like that, which is just as useful, but a lot less work for me to deal with, so that's good. But I just got to the section that has some of my favorite chapters in the book, which is weird to say because I wrote those last few chapters very quickly, but I am so proud of the ending of this book. And I'm just reading some of Marta's comments, and like this one just says, "Marta, you do not understand how much I'm anticipating the ending of this book. I am literally carrying my laptop around the apartment pacing because I'm so high up. This section has been by far my favorite, and I can't believe you said that was the one you worked on least." I am so happy. There was also a comment further up that said something along the lines of being very excited for the sequel, and that also makes me very happy. It also makes me a little bit anxious because the sequel is so not ready for public consumption, and it's also so much worse than the first book, but we'll get to that when we get to that. For now, I'm just so excited to make some of these changes that Marta suggested. I think they're gonna really help make this book better, and I'm looking forward to working on them. And I have another 2 people worth of feedback and also 3 more chapters of feedback to go through here. But yeah, I think the next draft is really going to help make this book so much better, and I'm very excited to work on it. It's taken me a lot longer than I'd like to admit to set up a corner of our new flat just well enough that I can film in it without being embarrassed, but we got there in the end. Welcome to a little sneaky preview of my new flat. I'm not sure whether this video will come out before or after the moving video, but either way, I apparently haven't updated you since I was reading Marta's comments. I have since then gone through all the other comments for both Violet and Crystal, who also read the book, and that was a while ago now, I did finish both of those in the old flat, but I was doing it sort of like in between and very small gaps here and there. And then when I finished it, I just left myself a couple of notes, and then that was that, and then I didn't touch it again for a couple of weeks. Life has been a bit crazy lately. This video has been honestly so all over the place with everything else that's been happening. I was expecting it to be a January project. Instead, it is currently the 24th of April. No, March. Jesus. The 24th of March. Honestly, I don't understand where the year has gone. Like, what happened with the first quarter of the year? I thought I had more time than that. Anyway, let me just go through some of the notes that I left myself about my beta reading experience. The main thing that I wrote down, which is honestly in hindsight was very stupid of me, I went through beta reading feedback person by person. So I started with Marta's feedback, then I did Violet, then I did Crystal at the end, just in the order of who completed the book first and who completed it last. No shade to Crystal. But I think that was actually not a great approach. I think going through it section by section and going, so like section 1 for all 3 beta readers and section 2 for all 3, would have been a lot smarter. And I didn't notice this until I was towards the end of Violet's comments, and she left a comment saying that she really liked a particular chapter. And I remembered, because I'd just finished Marta's comments, that Mars didn't like that chapter at all. And I made a note of that. However, that made me think of how many times Mars said that they really liked the chapter, and because it was a positive comment and not a negative one, I didn't write it down. So then when I went through Violet's chapters, there's a chance that she said that she didn't like something and that Mars did like it, but I didn't write down what Mars liked. I only wrote down what Mars disliked, which makes it a lot harder for me to then cross-reference. Like if someone really likes something and someone really dislikes it, that's useful to know rather than just writing down what people dislike, but I didn't write it down. So I'm not really sure how to handle that. I don't really want to go through all of the notes again. So I think I'm just gonna learn from that and next time try and do it section by section and try and arrange it so that I do the entire section, so all beta comments from that particular section in one sitting to make it easier to pick out those little things. As for the beta comments in general, the main takeaway is that people were getting a bit confused with some of the bits. And it's funny because people were getting confused by different things. I think a couple of people were mostly confused by the magic system and other people were confused by the world building. And there was one thing that every single one of my beta readers mentioned that they were confused by, and that is the hierarchy structure in the book. And I can see why. I think I'm gonna need to change that, and I'm not sure how. Then the other thing I wrote down, which at the time made me laugh, one person left a comment that was just something along the lines of, oh, I really like this character, he seems nice. And I wrote that down as a piece of criticism because that character is not supposed to be nice, he's supposed to be a bit of an asshole. But I found that really interesting because when I'm beta reading for other people, I just write down whatever comes to mind and hope that they can make use of that or just find it entertaining in general. And I feel like this person didn't mean for that comment to be useful to me. They were just pointing something out, but it was useful because it means that it's coming across wrong. So I just found that quite interesting to be on the receiving end of that, because I have beta read a lot at this point, but this is the first time that other people have beta read for me. And I think that now knowing what I found helpful when people pointed out and what I didn't is hopefully going to make me a better beta reader in the future now that I'm on the receiving end of this. The only other thing I wanted to mention is at the start of the video when we went through the to-do list items for what I wanted to do during this vlog, I mentioned that I was gonna plan the next revision as well. I haven't technically done that yet, and I've also mentioned a couple of times that I'm going to show you my revision tracker, which is how I plan the next revision. And I think because this video has felt so disjointed already, and I filmed it in 3 different locations at this point, and it's getting a bit all over the place, I'm gonna make that a separate video. So I think I'm gonna just wrap this video up now, but I'm going to film a separate video where I go in depth into my Notion revisions tracker, how I organize it, and what I'm going to do now that I have a massive list of beta reading comments, as well as all of my own notes and all of my own notes from my last reread, just how I go about organizing that into something that I can work my way through. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around because that will be coming at some point. And in the meantime, I hope that you have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for watching. I am so sorry that I am uploading a video with a Christmas tree in it in April. I'm doing my best.